Elk hunting is a different level of preparation. The ultimate thing for me that I've learned through 24 years of elk hunting is, like I say it all the time, but separation is in the preparation. When I step out on the field, these dudes are here year round. They have home field advantage. They know where to stand to get the smells, to get the views, and you're the away team. The more physically prepared, and even more so, the more mentally prepared I am. I love when you walk up on an elk, because it's not like, oh man, it took me 5 days to kill this elk. No, man, it took me an entire year of doping in my nutrition, making sure I don't have any unwanted LBs on my body, doping in my strength so that I can move large loads, elk quarters, back to the truck safely without getting hurt, speed and agility so that I can make moves quickly on a herd of elk moving from feeding to bedding, and then obviously the endurance, the stamina, and then just being tough. Sign me up. That's what elk hunting is all about for me, is the whole process.
My name is Derek Wolfe. I'm a Super Bowl champion and a 10-year NFL vet. Now, after a decade of professional football, I'm focusing on my other passions. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Wolfe Untamed. Today's guest is Dan Staton. Dan is an elk hunter first, but he's also got a strength and fitness background. And he's combined those two things, and you might know him now on Instagram as ElkShape's. So go ahead and check this episode out. We talk a lot about hunting, a lot about the hunting bans that they're trying to implement, and really just all around just a great hunter and a great guy. So hope you like it. Dan, thanks for making the time, man. I appreciate it, brother.
You bet, man.
What you been up to?
What have I been up to? Well, I hunted my brains out in September, a little bit October, and then just kind of dug myself a hole, with work and family. So I've been just playing catch up ever since, and it's like December now, so it's crazy.
Yeah, that's it's funny because my wife calls herself a September widow, because as soon as September hits, I'm off to the mountains. And did you have any success on elk this year?
Every year is successful, man. As cheesy as that sounds, like for me, it's my Super Bowl, which I love saying that analogy with you here, but I do say that. And yeah, man, we made it to the Super Bowl. So it was a successful year. I was able to knock down quite a few bulls and go see some beautiful landscapes and country and be wild and free,
Yeah, that's what it's about, man. It's about just spending time out there.
Yeah.
I actually started my season in August. I went to British Columbia and did a mountain goat hunt.
Oh, was that with Snyder?
Yeah. Yeah, we bow hunted them. It was it was just awesome. We were like 350 miles from a road. It was just incredible. Spike camping. It was great.
How far north were you?
Almost to the Yukon.
Oh, okay.
Real close.
Yeah, that's some remote country.
Yeah, super remote. So like you fly into Vancouver, and then from Vancouver up to a place called Smithers, and then from there it's like a 2-hour auto ride, and then you land in camp, and then from there it's another 2-hour Super Cub ride into onto a lake, and then a 14-mile hike up into where you're actually hunting, and then you day hunt from there.
Dude, now that's a mountain goat hunt. I've only done one mountain goat hunt in the States, and it was there was no planes and trains, and it was just that's cool. What an adventure! And man, everything has to go kind of perfectly for you to even get there.
Yeah, the weather has to be perfect. It's the weather really that you're battling, and that time of year it's nice because the goats are starting to get that winter coat, so they're not all mangy looking,
Yeah.
Because in the summer they like lose that winter coat and they look mangy. So you want that like heavy coat on your goat. And man, it was a really, if you want to hear the story, I'll tell you real quick. But
I'm here for it.
It was pretty wild. I mean, we hiked all the way up in there, and on the first day we decided we're gonna move camp, so we moved. Because we didn't think it was smart to be hunting from where we were, because there was a different canyon we wanted to get across, and it's just so remote that you can't. It's hard to explain to people unless you've been there and seen like, oh, it's only 10 miles there, but 10 miles out there is like, I mean, it might as well be 20, 30. It's just going to take you at least a day to get there, because it's so rocky and unforgiving. And you're just side hilling for 3-4 miles straight. And then, you get to the top, and then you don't know what's on the other side of that. So, luckily Aaron had done some flying, so he kind of knew, what areas we were going to be working in. And he kind of knew what the terrain looked like, but it always looks different when you get there. It's just like when you glass something up and then you get in there, you're like, okay, now I'm lost. I have no clue what this is. It's kind of the same thing. And, so we found a goat finally. It was actually the first day we were hunting. It took us 4 days just to get to where we wanted to hunt, total. And then we started hunting and we found like a really good goat. So we're like, all right, let's go put a move on him. He was out in the wide open. So it was like, with a bow, we're probably not going to get a shot, but let's see if we can catch him moving somewhere. Well, it ended up working out perfect because there was like a little, we side hilled for like 4 miles to get to him, to go around and drop down on him with the wind right. And we dropped down on him. And next thing you know, he's walking right towards us. He just gets up and starts walking right and feeding right towards us. And at 67 yards, I decided to let one fly. And I went through his ear, through his neck, and then hit him in the butt. So it was like, I don't know what it was crazy because there was like an updraft, and it just pushed my arrow a little bit. Like it lifted it up a little bit. And I thought it just bounced off his back. Like it looked like it just bounced off his back. You know how everything happened so fast. But then he took off running, and then we get up around and I see him. He's bleeding. He's bleeding good, like out of his neck, out of his ear, and out of his back. I'm like, oh, he's bleeding good. And he's acting kind of woozy. But where he was at, he would have fell down into this like hellhole, like an absolute hellhole, and probably wrecked his horns and probably wrecked all the meat. Everything would have been wrecked, or tenderized at least. But I decided Aaron was like, dude, you probably should shoot him with the rifle just to put him down where he's at so he doesn't fall down there. We don't want to climb out of there. So I got the rifle and hit him with the rifle, and he just dropped right there. And then we got to him and I saw how steep that stuff was, and thank God I didn't have to go all the way down there, because it was, and if anybody wants to see it, you go look on my Instagram, but it was pretty, I've never been in a situation when I was hunting where I was like, man, I'll probably could die right here. Like I've been in some sketchy situations, but never where I was like, so I had to like completely block that out. Cause it's like the fear, if you let the fear take over, you're probably going to fall. And that was one of those situations where we're like cleaning this thing on the side of the mountain, and it was so steep. We had like a little 4 foot by 4 foot area we could work. And it was like, we almost fell like 3 or 4 times. It was like, we need rappelling gear to like be down here. It was pretty wild. And then we packed him out of there and slept that night at day camp. And then it was like a 14-mile hike back to the little pond basically that we got picked up at. And that pack out, man. And Snyder, he's balls to the wall. So he, like, the initial descent down was the steepest thing I've ever walked down, ever. No one would ever look at that and be like, yeah, we should just go this way. But that was like the quickest way to get down to where he thought there might be this like caribou trail. So that's what we did. And luckily we did get on a caribou trail for a little bit. But once you get into that thick stuff, you're just bushwhacking for 10 miles. And then the last like 3 miles was just like tundra, like that marshy, every time you take a step, it's like walking in deep, deep sand. And it was, oh, dude, it was rough. And we got out of there though. And we made it back. And then we ate most of that goat when we got back because we were just so tired of eating peak meals.
Yeah.
So we just, I actually took like a Mountain House and mixed it in the bag with some olive oil and with the meat. It was like a berry flavor. It was like berries and stuff in that Mountain House. So we just mixed that together, cooked that, and it was delicious, man. So it was a real adventure. And that's what I'm looking for when I go out on these mountain hunts is I want an adventure. Obviously I want to come back safe and healthy, but I trained hard for that hunt and made sure I was in shape. And I never once felt like, oh, I'm too tired to keep going. And, that's a testament to the kind of training that you have to do for this mountain hunting, and that's kind of where I wanted to lead into what you're doing now with ElkShape, which is pretty badass. And I think the hunting community and then the fitness community has kind of like come together in this area, with you, Cam Haynes. Cam does a little bit different. He's like he just runs crazy marathons every day. Like I can't compete with that. I'm just not going to do that. Sorry. I can't. I'm 300 pounds still. I can't run a mile. I can't run 10 miles every day, 25 miles every day. I run a mile and I'm like, all right, I'm good. So let's talk about you. Let's go to the beginning. Where'd you grow up?
Oh man, there's a lot to unpack there. First, I do got to say, like, mountain goat hunting is the most dangerous hunt out there that you can do. More guides get killed doing, falls. I remember it was a couple years ago, I was in the Crazies in Montana And a buddy of mine showed me where a guy who had been guiding there for over decades lost his life, just slipped, bad weather. Mountain goat hunting's no joke. And I hope I get to do more. Mine was in Utah and with a bow. And I tell you, like, those animals are super tough. They're amazing. Here in my home state of Washington, well, actually not technically, I live in Idaho now, but I grew up in Washington, to answer your question. And we have a couple wildernesses in the Cascades where there's just like literally hundreds of mountain goats. And I just like going hiking off the PCT and checking out and watching where they live, the country they work. I mean, there are mountain goats in places where you can't even fathom as a human being how to get there. Like, they'll be on a face of a cliff that's 300-400 feet vertical, and they'll be up in the middle of it. And you'll be like, I don't even know how the hell you got there. And they're good to go. So
yeah, they're comfortable there.
You guys liked your mountain goat meat, huh?
Yeah, I thought it was great. But again, it's all like, if you brought it to me right now, after I just ate like a bison ribeye or something, or like an elk backstrap or something, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't love it. But dude, it was like, to me, it was so good on that mountain. And then when we got back, we cooked it all. We ate all of it before we left camp. Before we left to come back to the States, we ate all of that mountain goat.
No,
because the whole camp ate on it. The whole camp ended up eating on it. So we just finished it off there.
Well, that's cool that you shared, man. And that's part of being a hunter, is sharing, providing. And that's pretty cool. I grew up in a small town outside of Spokane, Washington called Elk, Washington. And no, there's not that many elk there. But yeah, I was up there in my childhood, kind of grew up in the country. And then my folks kind of were tired of being poor. My dad was a pastor and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I think my mom's like, I'm going back to school. You're getting a real job. Like, we're tired of being poor. And so we moved into town, and I grew up, just in Spokane on the north side, and pretty much stayed home minus, pursuing my career in my college days. I did a lot of traveling and stuff, but came back home, settled roots. And now we live in Post Falls, Idaho, which is just on the other side of the border.
And when you talk about your career, that was your strength and conditioning career, or?
Yeah. So I grew up,
because we have a mutual contact with Richardson, right? So.
Oh yeah. Richardson was definitely a formidable mentor. He doesn't even know who I am. I was just a nobody, graduate student, intern under his tutelage, but I watched every move he made and learned a lot from him. Is he still with Denver, or is he retired?
No, Luke left in 2016, and then they brought Lauren Landow in, and it was funny because I trained with Lauren in the off season.
Okay.
So I loved it. It was great. I had Luke for like during the season and all spring, and then I had Lauren for like the summer. It was just, who has it? That, I mean, nobody has that, and we're training at altitude. It was just phenomenal. So I played my best football those years that I had those two guys. And Luke is just Luke's coaching ability is like, not just like his understanding of strength and conditioning and how to how to grow and how to create muscle and power and mass and all that stuff, but his ability to like keep you mentally where you need to be, it was phenomenal. I used to talk to him every single day. Before practice, I would go over there and he would put me through like a little activation series, just to like get activated on like the power on the on that vibrating plate, so we'd do like some activation and stuff on there. And man, he would just, the stuff he would put in my brain, it would just like get me ready for practice. And doing that every day with somebody, just like, he and I had a really good relationship. And then when he left, he just kind of like shut everybody out and just focused on his son, which I completely understand, because I think his son, I don't know where his son's going to school, but I know he's like one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. So, I'm not surprised.
Well, I think of Luke, I think of, I was a pretty young dude. I was probably 22 or 23, getting my master's in exercise physiology. And Luke was like the head coach down at Athletes Performance in Tempe, Arizona. And we were working with the 2006 NFL combine draft. We were getting all the top picks ready to shave off a second or a couple tenths off their 40 or jump a little higher. I mean, this is, it's the game, and all their agents are there. But Luke had so much poise and command when he walked into a room, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to have his leadership and his ability to make athletes run through brick walls because he told them it was a good idea, and they would do it. So yeah, he was super motivating, and obviously he knew his stuff. And for those that know, Athletes Performance, I don't know if it's in existence anymore, but at the time in 2006, this was where you wanted to train if you were a professional athlete. So like Mia Hamm, Nomar Garcia-Parra, Kurt Schilling, a ton of MLB guys were there. And then you had all these up and coming 2006 draft guys with their agents there, just trying to make their stock climb as they go in. And I think in 2006, there wasn't that rookie like pay scale where you could actually get a payday out of the draft.
Big time.
And
Big
so
time.
everything mattered. And we did their nutrition there. Like these guys had all their food made there, all their shakes, all their post-workout, on-site physios, massage. I helped with the strength and the conditioning, but they did all the recovery there, cold plunge, hot plunge, contrast, needling, everything was going down in 2006. And I was just like taking it all in because I wanted to be I wanted to be a Luke Richardson. I wanted to be a strength coach at the NFL level, quite honestly. Like that was my goal.
Yeah, it's a tough job, and it's demanding. The hours are insane. You're there at 4 a.m. and then you don't leave, and you're like one of the last ones to leave. And then you're just like personal training all day long. Like that's what you're doing. You're just training guys all day long. And then I think if I was going to go strength and conditioning route, college would be more fun for me, because you get to build men. Then you're not dealing with grown ass men that have children and a family. And, it's just a whole different style of training when you're training NFL guys, and everybody feels like they have their own. Nowadays, you got guys that they don't even do the strength conditioning at a certain team. Like they just don't do it. They just have their own thing. I think the Boses are like that. They have their own deal that they do, and it's like worked into their contract. Luke would have never allowed that. He would have never allowed that. Neither would Lauren. So, it's just, I think strength coaches always have like my college strength coaches just built my mental toughness to a whole nother level. We're going to squat until you can't breathe and you're going to throw up, and then we're going to go run 110s. It was like, it just mean, you know what I mean? It was like, you're unbreakable at that point. So I would rather train, and you could talk to a college kid a certain way, whereas like if you talk to a grown man that way, it's kind of like you might get in a fist fight because it's just there's egos involved, and you're not building a man. You're like already dealing with a grown man. So when did you decide that you didn't want to do that anymore?
Yeah, it has to do with hunting. I mean, no surprise there, but like I had another strength coach over at the Titans let me come down and watch a game, and I really got to like pick his brain. I think his name's Steve Watterson, and I don't know, I haven't stayed in touch with him, but like the attitude of his NFL strength and conditioning coach, it kind of sucks because you can't hurt these multi-million-dollar athletes. So you don't get to train them like college kids. They are adults. They have families or whatever. And your biggest, like, how's it going to look if you injure somebody while training them and they don't get to start next week because of you? Like, so you're paranoid about hurting these athletes. That's not a good mindset for me. And then obviously I discovered elk hunting right out of high school, and it was really like hard for me to serve two masters. I realized if I want to be an NFL strength and conditioning coach, I'm going to be in the weight room or on the sidelines Monday through Sunday, all fall long. I will never get to go hunting. I will never get to hear elk bugle.
No.
And so I think it was right after that internship in 2006. And I had been elk hunting as much as I could up to that point. I just decided I wanted to pursue maybe training collegiate or high school athletes. And so that's what I did. That kind of moved me away from that NFL top of the tier. I'll just, hunting's that important to me.
Yeah. I understand, totally understand that. It's funny because I hunted from 11 years old till I was out of high school. And then it was like it just stopped once I got to college. I just could not do it. And it was like I had to just forget about it. You know, I had to be like, all right, well, that's not like, because you know how it is when you can't go do what you really want to go do, it sucks. Like I loved playing football, but I love bow hunting. Like I love it. That's like where I find peace. And it sucks because you can't just like take the day off and go bow hunt when you're a professional athlete. Like you just don't, those days off, that's not a real day off. You're spending that time recovering. You're doing like true recovery and modalities and stuff like that. Like you're not taking you don't get time to go just sit in the woods. So I totally understand why you would decide like, look, dude, this is because at the end of the day, if you're not doing something you love, then you're just asking to live a miserable life. Right? Like it's gonna be miserable for you. Like you're gonna be chasing, what are you chasing at that point? You know, you're just chasing accolades. Like, oh, I'm the best strength coach ever. You know, like, is that what you're really chasing? You know, it's just, to me, you know, it takes a certain lifestyle and there's a lot of sacrifice there. It's hard to have a family when you're a coach in the NFL. It's incredibly difficult to be like present as a father when you're working in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think honestly, at the time, it wasn't a family decision. I wasn't married yet, but it wasn't that hard of a decision, Derek. Like
Hmm.
people probably who don't hunt, who don't spend an abundance of time in the outdoors, will really never truly appreciate what it's like for that reset to just get away from it all and kind of find yourself in northern BC walking in places where most human beings have never walked because you're chasing a mountain goat. So like for me, elk hunting has taken me, I've hunted everywhere for elk in the lower 48, like every state. And I've been into the most incredible places. And year over year, I find myself, I know you will agree with this, I'll stop and I'll be like, there is no reason for me to ever be step foot right here and watch that sun come over that mountain in this beautiful basin. I would never have gotten here if it wasn't for elk hunting. I wouldn't do it on my own just to hike. It's just these
No.
obscure, wild places you get to experience, and man, you feel alive. And so the decision wasn't hard, honestly. Elk hunting is my number one passion, and so I am going to quit jobs. I'm going to change careers. I will do whatever it takes so that I get to do this year over year.
Yeah, and that's anything, to be great at anything, it takes sacrifice. You know what I mean? And elk hunting is no different because elk hunting it's different than every other kind of hunting. It's different. There's no true comparison to elk hunting with a bow during the rut. You know, trying to call in bulls, trying to put yourself in the right position, the amount of miles that you have to put on your feet. You know, everything has to go. I always tell people, they're like, well, yeah, oh, it doesn't sound, there's elk everywhere. What do you mean? It's not that hard. I'm like, try getting 50 yards from one when he has 40 cows. Like, yeah, you can get up close to a young, dumb one. That's just, you know, but that's not good conservation. Like, I'm trying to kill a mature bull. That means I got to get 50 yards from a bull that's probably got 50 cows with him. You know, or at least 10 cows. There's going to be at least 10 cows in there. And those cows are spooky as hell because they're getting chased around by a big bull all day and he's fighting other bulls. It's just like when you get into like a real rut fest and the bulls are screaming and the cows are barking, and it's just, I mean, it's insane. And you're right, man. People that don't do it and haven't been in that situation, they'll never really know what that's like. And it's hard to explain it to them. And that's where like the anti-hunting thing, where I'm like, if you guys understood that it's not about the kill, it's about the adventure that happens when you're out there. It's about like being so close to like a 900-pound bull, screaming bull, like the adrenaline rush that goes with that. You know, I always tell people after I kill something, I'm like super sad about it. Like super sad. I'm super happy at first, and then the realization of like, oh, the hunt's over now. Like now I'm sad. You know, it's like now I'm sad. It's not like I'm disappointed or anything. I'm just sad that now it's over. It's like once you've accomplished, now I've accomplished the goal. Now I'm sad. and people they don't get, they're like, why are you sad? And I'm like, dude, I just like, I enjoy the process of the hunt. You know, like I enjoy the hunt. It's like pursuing a quarterback. Like I did all this work to get to the guy. I did all of these things happened in the first and second quarter for me to get a sack in the third quarter. And now I'm like, oh, you know, I'm kind of sad. I want to like start it over. You know, it was like after we won the Super Bowl, like we won the Super Bowl and I was like, not that happy because I wanted to keep going. I was like, I was having fun in the moment. Like that was so much fun winning these close games and playing in such like high pressure environments. And, you know, the crowds are screaming and you're like, the big plays are happening and it's like playoff football. And then when it's done, it's like, oh, it's done. Like we have to start over again, you know, that's, you know, there's like some, I don't even know how to explain that feeling. It's like a surreal type of feeling. You're just like, like I wanted to keep going, you know, and it's just like that with elk hunting. I'd say the same thing about whitetail hunting. I love the whitetail hunt too, because I grew up doing it. So it's like a big giant, like not even a giant white, anything with horns on it walks by, I get all jacked up and fired up about it. Like, it's just like I'm a 14-year-old kid again up there, like shaking in the tree, you know, and it's just, it's hard to explain that to people. You know, I killed a buck in Kansas this year on like the first day, killed like a nice 150 buck, biggest whitetail I've ever shot with a bow. And
Wow.
I was like ecstatic. And then when it was over, my buddy, my camera guy, he was a really good friend of mine. He's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I'm just sad it's over. Like you know, it sucks that it's over. Like I was enjoying the process, you know, like trying to rattle bucks in and grunting at them and snort wheezing at them and stuff like that. It's just, you get like caught up in the moment and then you're in the moment, then it's done. It's like, oh, it's done. You know, I got to go back to real life now. Hey guys, I want to talk to you about one of my favorite sponsors, Juniper Mountain Coffee. Coffee without compromise. You're getting high quality coffee without the high prices. This is an American company that stands behind their values. They stand behind their coffee. These guys make some of the best coffee I've ever had. It's a coffee I drink every morning. Juniper Mountain Coffee works directly with the farmers, paying fair wages, and that way you have no middleman. There's no BS, no garbage. You're getting high quality products. So go check them out at junipermountaincoffee.com.
So I'm a huge whitetail guy too, man. Like I started whitetail hunting way before I even knew what elk were. And to this day, nothing gets me more adrenalized than a whitetail coming in and you're trying to hold still in an elevated position. And you're playing, you know, whitetail hunting is definitely chess, not checkers. And I love everything about whitetail hunting. And I totally get that the bulk of the hunting space is all about whitetail hunting. It's the most readily available opportunity. You talk about a conservation success story. That is whitetail. You know, they were almost decimated off the landscape and now they're in abundance in almost every state. But the cool thing about whitetail hunting for me is like, it's a lot of prep and work if you do it proper, where, you know, you really got to be a woodsman and you can't just rely on trail cameras. You got to really figure out how these animals make a living on the landscape. Where are they getting, what are their food sources? These are very, like, especially mature bucks, man. Like they're not coming out of the woodwork year round. They're very reserved on where they go and they rarely daylight. They have their systems to keep them alive. They bed surgically so that they can have not only peripheral vision of potential threats, but the way that they bed based on the wind that day so that they can smell. They know where potential threats will come from. The way they move through the mountains. I hunt a lot of mountain bucks, so I'll say mountains, but whatever. The way they move through the woods and they, you know, all the scrapes. You have field line scrapes. You have scrapes in the timber. All these, like the way they communicate with each other through scent. It's fascinating. But my point to all that, Derek, is that elk hunting is a different level of preparation. And there is a lot of rabbit holes that you can go down to be a great elk hunter. You can just show up at the trailhead and wing it. You might have some success, maybe because you were lucky or whatever. But the ultimate thing for me that I've learned through all 24 years of elk hunting is, like I say it all the time, but separation is in the preparation. The thing I love about elk hunting is that it keeps me on my toes year round. I spend maybe 30 days a year chasing elk, which is a ton compared to most. And I get that, very grateful. But those other 330 something days, I'm in 4 walls, heating, air conditioning. I have a refrigerator 10 feet away, a nice, warm, cozy bed. I got Netflix. I got all these things. So when I step out in the field, man, these dudes are here year round, making a living. Every day, something wants to eat them for their food. It takes life to live life. And a lot of guys think they can just show up and match wits with a bull elk, like you were saying, and getting 50 yards from them is nearly impossible with a bow because they have home field advantage. They know where to stand to get the smells, to get the views. And you are kind of like you're the away team, to use that analogy. Like you're showing
Oh
up
yeah.
visitor and they have home field advantage. I love all that. And there's a physicality to elk hunting that is unmatched in anything else I've done, where the more physically prepared, and even more so, the more mentally tough or prepared I am for just doing annoying high road stuff that sucks, like waking up 2 hours extra early, hiking through a sea of downfall, grinding it out day in and day out, taking no days off, not taking naps, always being productive and trying to seal the deal. I love when you walk up on an elk because it's not like, oh man, it took me 5 days to kill this elk. No, man, it took me an entire year of doping in my nutrition, making sure I don't have any unwanted LBs on my body, doping in my strength so that I can move large loads, elk quarters back to the truck safely without getting hurt. Speed and agility so that I can make moves quickly on a herd of elk moving from feeding to bedding. And then obviously the endurance, the stamina, and then just being tough, knowing that I have some grit that I can make it happen. So when you walk up on that elk, yes, there's a dichotomy. Yes, you're elated. Yes, you're like pretty sad and emotional and maybe even shed a tear. I know I shed at least one tear this year walking up on one of the elk I killed just because like, it wasn't that it was over. It was just that I literally saw that bull tip over and he was alive 5 seconds ago and living his best life. And now he's no longer going to be alive, but he is going to end up in my freezer on my table. And I know where he came from. And I went to his stadium and got it done. And so that rewarding feeling, that delayed gratification, man, like sign me up. That's what elk hunting's all about for me, is the whole process.
Oh yeah. There's so many emotions that go into it. And then like for me, where it really all comes together is when I'm like at the dinner table and I'm feeding my family with that meat. That's just like when I'm like preparing it and cooking it up and serving it to my family. It's just something about that just, it's so primal to me. And it makes me feel whole to be able to do that. And a lot of people don't get to experience that. And I think I think we're like DNA coded as men to kind of do that. That's like we're coded to like provide meat for our family, and it's, I do it and I do it with everybody around me. Like anybody that comes in my house, I'm trying to feed them some wild game that, I've harvested and they're all, everybody just is like, oh, this is way better than I thought it would be, and it's like, well, yeah, cause it's not pumped full of antibiotics and bullshit. It's like, it's a wild animal. It tastes way better to me.
It's grass fed and grass finished. And,
Yep.
For me, like cutting that animal up and knowing all the intricacies of being a butcher and breaking that meat down and getting it back and taking really good care of it. Yeah, it's rewarding. And, for my kids, they're 8 and 10 and I know you got kids. Like they just don't they don't know yet. Like they just, it's normal to eat elk 6 days a week. They don't even think twice about it. They truly have no clue of what I go through to get that to their table, but obviously someday they will and they might look back. But from a professional athlete standpoint, I mean, I don't want to make elk hunting so cool that everyone wants to do it, but I do want everyone to do it. It's kind of another dichotomy, but like professional athletes, anyone training, like you find me a better protein source than elk meat. That is performance enhancing. I don't think you can.
No, there is none. While I think bison is a comparable meat, like as far as like something you could buy on the reg and you don't have to go out and harvest it. Cause that's what I ate when I was playing. I still eat a ton of it. Shout out to Great Range Premium Bison. They hook it up for me. So, but for 10 years, I bought that product and it was just phenomenal to me. Their ground meat and their steaks and stuff were just like super clean, super lean. and the energy was just unbelievable. And I was always the leanest and strongest ever eating that bison. So I would say that the next comparison would be bison. But it, obviously, because elk is not, you can't just go to the store and buy elk. There's some places you can, but for the most people just can't go buy elk. Which is crazy because there's an abundance of them. There's a ton of elk. You could farm. I mean, there's a lot of farms with elk on them that you could farm them, but I don't think you could do it as much as you could. There's not as much meat as you get from like a 2,000-pound bison, obviously. So, or a 2,000-pound bull, or 1,500-pound heifer. You're just not going to get as much meat. So, and it's not as sustainable, and it's more expensive and harder to keep them alive.
Yeah, my elk meat is definitely not cheap when you think about all the resources.
Oh, yeah, kidding me? It's so expensive. Hunting is not cheap.
No,
I don't care what. It does not. It's just not cheap. It's not. It's like, there's guys like the hunting public guys. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Those guys will do like episodes where they show how cheap they did it for. Like they went and bought a random bow at like a bow shop for like $50, and these cheap arrows and stuff. And like, yeah, that all sounds good, but like the average guy is not gonna be able to do that. It's just not gonna happen. Especially if you live out west. And then learning. The hardest part about hunting out west, Dan, is the point system.
Oh yeah,
that's the hardest part. Like, forget about getting in shape. That stuff's all controllable, but learning the point system is like a whole nother language, and it takes up so much of your mental time. It's just, it makes me crazy. Like, cause I grew up on the East Coast where you just buy a fucking deer tag and you buy a hunting license and a deer tag and you go, and that gives you get a turkey, a buck, and 2 does. That's what your hunting license, and you get like all the small game.
Yeah.
Like on one hunting license and a deer tag.
Yeah. And it's changed significantly. When I started elk hunting, it was, I think I might've killed my first elk in 2000 or 2001. I can't remember, but, for the longest time there wasn't the internet. So there wasn't like, there wasn't online applications. And I knew from just research early on that I needed to put in for elk hunts besides my home state, because there was better places than Washington State to elk hunt, still is. And so I would like have to get subscriptions to like Hunting Full or Eastman's and read and research and go to order each state's proclamation, have them snail mail them to me. So read through, and I would be doing paper applications to hunt like Arizona, and I would put in, and you'd have to send a check in a separate envelope for each species. And they even dictated the color of ballpoint pen. You had to use a black or blue ballpoint pen. I mean, it was insane. And so I've got to watch it switch to entirely online. I've watched these companies like Hunting Full go digital, Go Hunt, and there's all these resources now. There's podcasts, YouTube. So I'm going to sound old, but you kids these days, you have a huge hedge or advantage to learn this nuanced point system. There's no excuses. And it is a moving target. It changes year over year. And I've been in the game. I mean, I have some states where I have like 20 plus points for different species. That means I've gained a point each year. I have been unsuccessful drawing a tag. And so it's not a free for all, folks. Like elk hunting is strictly managed tightly. They have a number of tags allocated to residents who get the, majority, as they should. And then non-resident schmucks like me get some, and some of them are random. Some of them are preferenced or weighted points or completely, lottery based. And so, yeah, it's overwhelming, but man, if you want to play the game, you got to play the game.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. You have to learn the language, and it's just, you learn it. It's, to me, I look at it like a playbook. Every time a new defensive coordinator comes in there, it's a whole nother terminology. So you just had to learn that terminology. And it's like, well, we used to call, we called it this. And it's like, no, that's not what we call it. We call it, we have a whole different term for it. And it's like, okay, well, I got to learn that terminology then. And it was the same thing with elk hunting because if I would have known what the hell I was doing, I would have been building points this whole time I lived here.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that that's how it worked. I just thought, oh, you just buy a hunting license and you get to go.
Yeah.
You could just go wherever, you go all over the state, and you just find a good spot and you go. And then I was like, wait, they're like, oh, how many points do you have? And I'm like, points? What do you mean points? What do you mean? What does that mean? And they're like, oh, you haven't been building points? I was like, no. And they're like, oh, you're done.
Yeah.
Like, good luck, dude. Have fun over the counter. And I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah, no,
I was so green.
And your state has the most elk, and out of all the lower 48, Colorado bolsters the best numbers by like double realistically. And they changed things for 2025. So I can't just go into Walmart and pick up an over-the-counter elk tag with no points in the game and go hunt. You know, I don't even know how many general units you guys have, over-the-counter units, but a ton. I could go hunt. That's no longer the thing archery-wise. You now have to kind of, you know, have some skin in the game and commit a point or whatever your first choice for these draw units, which we'll see how it shakes out, Derek. I'm not sure how it will. I think the one thing that, and I don't follow everything as closely as I should, but as a hunter, I know I need to be vested into what politics, bureaucracy is going on in your state. And I learned that honestly when I was a resident in Washington. There's a lot of bullshit going on in Washington. There was a lot. And then it seemed like Colorado started following Washington's game, like our playbook, which is where you have a liberal governor. I did not want to talk politics, but you'll have a liberal governor, which yours is pretty liberal. And so is his husband. Yeah, that's what I said. And you have our liberal governor basically appointing people with an agenda to eliminate hunting off the landscape and appointing them to our commission who make hunting decisions and don't even want to hear what the biologist has to say of what's best for the animals on the landscape, carrying capacity, harvest numbers, quotas. They don't even want to hear that. And they have enough of them to where they can outvote the normal people. And so what ends up happening is you'll have things like no more spring bear hunting. It's not ethical to shoot bears in the spring. They just got out of hibernation and they're lethargic and they're just, you know, I can't even remember their narrative, Derek, but like Washington State has so many black bears that they could afford to have an over-the-counter spring bear 2-tag quota per hunter, and we still wouldn't put a dent in their population. And I love black bears on the landscape, and you can't get rid of black bears on the landscape. So Washington no longer allows hound hunting for bears, no more baiting, and we have no more spring bear hunting. And it's just a continual, like, little nicks and cuts with razor blades from those that have an agenda. And then I see that your state starts having a liberal governor. He starts appointing people. And then all of a sudden, let's have the non-educated. And when I say non-educated, I mean they're educated, but they have no education towards hunting, conservation, wildlife biology, wildlife study, the North American model. None of that is on their radar. They live in Boulder. They live in Denver. They live in the Springs, and they get to have a say and vote whether or not mountain lion hunting is called trophy hunting, or you can do that. So I just in the last couple of years have become a member of HOW, a member of all these organizations, and I'm paying attention to what's happening in your state. And I'm paying attention to what happens in Washington next to me. And I'm going to do the call to actions because we as hunters have to be united on that front for sure. And I was really excited in November for a lot of reasons with the election results, but especially to see that get shot down in your state. I felt like, oh my gosh, like this was the first taste of victory in a long time, man.
Yeah, really, especially after the Wolfe reintroduction. That's been just a disaster. And I think regardless of all the education that we tried to get out there, you know, Dan Gates was like, he headed that and he just did an unbelievable job of bringing everyone together to fight that. But at the end of the day, they're still pushing propaganda on local news media. So the local media is showing, first of all, trophy hunting is already illegal. It was already illegal. Lynx hunting, illegal. So the fact that they were trying to say, oh, it's a trophy hunting ban. It's already illegal to do that. Like you have to process every ounce of that meat for human consumption, every ounce. So that's not trophy hunting. That is the opposite of trophy hunting. And then they were trying to say, well, using hounds is unethical. Well, I think it's unethical to just go out there and shoot the first cat you see. because you're not doing any conservation there. You're just killing the first one you see because you have no option. So using hounds, you get the lion in a tree, and then you can determine whether that's a mature male lion and if it's worth, taking or not. If it's a young male, we're gonna let him live. We're gonna leave him. And if it's a female with cubs, you leave her. If it's, but if it's like a sub-adult male, you don't want to kill that. You want to kill a big mature tom that, has lived his life, and it's time for him to go. Because if you don't, guess what? If we don't do it, they're going to pay a government houndsman to come in there and do it anyways. A government houndsman is going to, and with taxpayer money.
Exactly.
With taxpayer money, they're going to come in, they're going to pay a houndsman, come in there and kill it and just leave it lie. Instead, you're stimulating the economy. You're stimulating those local economies, the state economy, the local economy. Everybody wins. It's good for the lions. Since lion hunting has been reintroduced back in Colorado in the early 90s, I think it was early 90s, when they like kind of reintroduced it, the lion population is like tripled. So it shows you that like the North American model of conservation is the gold standard, and it works. And it's worked on countless animals. You mentioned whitetail earlier. Daniel Boone almost wiped them out, like on his own. But that's where the term a buck comes from, because it was deer pelts. They were just killing them for pelts. They didn't even eat the meat really. They just killed them for pelts. So, it shows you that like making sure that these animals are used to eat, it's a sustainable source of meat. And it's a sustainable source of income for the state. It costs $2,000 pretty much to buy a tag here. You know what I mean? What is it, like $1,400? Yep. By the time you get out here, you spent $2,000, and then that's that's huge. And we fought it hard. We fought hard to get because you're right, man. We have to as hunters, we have to be involved, and we have to understand what's going on, and because they're organized on the other side. Organized and well-funded on the other side. The anti-hunting community is super well-funded and super organized, and they don't think next year, they think 20 years down the road.
And they're united. They don't have little side arguments that are ego-driven, which we should definitely get into. But the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, man, like how many employees do they actually have? And of those employees, some of them are enforcement. A lot of them are biologists with boots on the ground. Who is paying their salary? Certainly hunters buying a hunting license and tag. We help that part of the economy, plus our self-imposed tax, Pittman-Robertson tax on firearms, ammo, bow sales. All that money gets distributed to their budget. We are pushing their budget. We are allowing them to do what they do. And then when the biologist does their thing and says, okay, Derek, we need to take a few lions in this unit out this year for carrying capacity. Cool. There's look down the road. There's a long line of dudes willing to go hunt those lions and pay money to do that and fill up their trucks in these small towns with gas and buy groceries and stay in hotels and motels and hire outfitters and stimulate the economy. So from an economical standpoint, we as hunters, we don't get enough props. And I guess I got to just reiterate, we should get some props. We put our money where our mouth is. Defenders of wildlife do not contribute to Colorado Parks and Wildlife operating budget. They never will.
No, they never will. They never will. All right, guys, I want to talk to you about a product that I've been using for a long time, over a decade. When I was playing football, one of my main staples in my diet was bison. I got my bison from Great Range Premium Bison. They make some of the finest cuts of bison you can get. These guys have ribeyes, ground bison, all the steaks that you want. My favorite part about Great Range is that you don't have to worry about antibiotics or growth hormones in their meats. Great Range Premium Bison is a family-owned company providing bison meat from family-owned ranches around the country. So please go check out greatrangebison.com. The Wolfe reintroduction was it just shows you how bad ballot box biology really is, because they talked about how, they just went around to get signatures. If you go up to the average person that lives in downtown Denver and says, hey, do you think wolves are cool? Yeah. You think we should have wolves in Colorado? Well, we don't? And they're like, no, we wiped them out. They were overhunted and killed. Do you think we should reintroduce them? Yeah, that'd be cool. Will you sign here so we can get this on the ballot? Sure. They just go, you get enough you get 100, I think it's 110,000 people to do that. I mean, there's, a city full of with millions of people that have no clue about any of that and what that would do to, they don't mention what that's going to do to the rancher. Oh, by the way, we have no management plan for them once we reintroduce them. So they're just going to run wild. And if you kill them, we'll take your truck, your guns, seize your bank accounts, and throw you in prison.
Yeah.
So, hold on a minute. I don't know about that. And what's happened is the local media did do a good job of spotlighting what's happened with these wolves in a short amount of time. I mean, as soon as they put them in here, shit started going bad. They started killing calves. They started killing dogs. They started, because that's what they did. They're killing machines. Like they are the alpha killing machine. You get a pack of timber wolves or a Canadian, I think they're Canadian gray wolves. They weigh 180 to 200 pounds. And they already pulled them from Oregon, which they were like a problem. They were already depredation wolves. So they were already causing problems. So you brought these problem wolves, reintroduced them to an area that's like loaded with perfect prime candidates to be killed by a wolf, which is like just livestock that never seen a wolf before. So they don't know how to defend themselves or how to like stay away from them. They see coyotes. The coyotes aren't taking out a cow, a full grown cow, or a heifer. But these wolves, the local media did a good job of showing like the disaster that it's been. And that was, I think that was the determining factor on Prop 127 was that everybody in the community and in the state saw how bad it's been and what happens when you don't let biologists do their job and you put gag orders on them. They put gag orders. The governor put gag orders on CPW. So they weren't even allowed to talk about wolves because there was already wolves in Colorado.
So your governor, I should say one thing. Well, I'll say two. One, on the wolf weight, I want to be real accurate there for those that are going to fact check us. So there aren't 180, 200 pound wolves, man. Like I live in Idaho, Washington. We got wolves all around us. I've seen hundreds of wolves with my own two eyes. The whole like Canadian wolf come down and it was that ain't real. There's a great wolf biologist that was on Joe Rogan's podcast. I can't remember her name. She's out of Montana. She did a great job. I don't agree with everything she says, but she's a hunter and a biologist and studies wolves. And like, she did a good job of like, hey man, like there aren't no 180 pound wolves, but regardless, wolf size, 80 pounds to 120, they're all teeth and they're formidable killers. That's what they do. That's what their strength in numbers. And the thing I wanted to ask you about the gag orders, and I find it curious, is your governor, I can't remember his name, but his husband, what does he do for a living, or what's his job title?
He's an animal. I'm going to say this liberally, but he's an animal rights extremist.
Okay.
So like he's an extremist. So it's just, when your wife wants something done and she's hounding your ass, what do? You get it done because you don't want to hear about it anymore. That's what's happening.
That's just a conflict of interest, in my opinion.
I agree, but there's no way to prove that because he's made it like a personal issue. I mean, it's just crazy to see the governor sitting in a commission, like a wildlife commission meeting, talking about, we got to ban mountain lion hunting. We got to reintroduce wolverines, while our state is literally being taken over by Venezuelan gangs because of your sanctuary statuses. And you just don't care. That doesn't matter. Like, let's not worry about that. Let's focus on stopping the hunting community from doing what they love to do. Let's do that. And I'll put my tinfoil hat on, but I think it's all part of the gun grab. It's all part of their gun grabbing. It's like, if there's no ungulates to hunt, then what do you, and they ban hunting completely because there's not enough ungulates to sustain like an actual hunting season. Then what do you need a hunting rifle for?
Right.
Well, what do you need a pistol for? What do you need? Like, it's just all part of the gun grab. And it's like, the more that we let them take from us, the more normalized it'll be. And then that passes on generational. And next thing you know, in 100 years, there will be no hunting and nobody will own a weapon. Nobody will defend themselves. They'll tell you what to think, what to eat, when to sleep, what job you're going to work. It's just, that's what's, to me, that's like that's the point of being free. That's what the point of being free is, that I can decide how I want to live my life.
Well, the telling you what to think thing, I witnessed it this year, especially, and I'm 43. I'm not really a guy who enjoys talking politics and all that kind of stuff. But on that same vein, I was watching some news throughout the leading weeks up to the election. And I'm not a guy that turns on Fox News. And there's a lot of people that do. And they have you on there all the time. And it's cool. Or CNN or MSNBC. A lot of times, my wife and I will try to catch the like national news broadcast in the evenings once the kid goes to bed to like see what's going on overseas, kind of like with Russia, Ukraine, or whatever. Long-winded, but I'm saying if I relied on the media coverage of the election from ABC News, I'll throw them under the bus. It was ABC News. We watched it via YouTube. I could fast forward the intro and just get right to the news. And they would have election coverage every night. And if I just went off what they were telling me, Donald Trump would have not been elected president based on their spin every night. It was so much negativity. It was like 15 minutes of negativity on what Trump did or didn't do or say. And then it would be like 5 minutes of how awesome his opponent was every night. And so when the election finally happened and the results speak for themselves, I was like, at what point can you ever trust the media? And the media in Colorado could spin things locally to whatever narrative. And so how do people get good, solid information to make their own informed decisions? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, Donald Trump showed the process. It's use podcasting. Use podcasting. Like the left went crazy about Joe Rogan is a Democrat.
Yeah.
Like he was a Bernie Sanders supporter. Like he was a Bernie bro.
Yeah.
Like that is like this dude is a socialist. You know, like at the end of the day, if you support Bernie Sanders, you support socialism. Because that's what he believes in. And he completely flipped sides. I mean, look at the attack they had on him just for having any kind of free thought about COVID, about the vaccines, about any of that. Like they completely attacked him. So they did have Joe Rogan, but they eat their own. That's the problem. Is their foundation is so weak that they just will stumble on their own and eat their own.
The thing I like about Rogan seems like, I don't know Joe personally. We've communicated very briefly, like on social media and stuff, but he is so open-minded and digestible for me that like when Bernie Sanders came on his pod, guess what, dude? I listened to the entire thing. I wanted to hear from him, and I thought Joe would be a safe guy to like have a conversation, and I could just be in the background listening. And if Kamala would have come on his podcast and done it the way like you ought to, which is 2 or 3 hours, sit down, really get to know somebody, I would have listened. And same with, I listened to the JD Vance one, and I listened to Trump's one with Rogan, and I love Rogan for a lot of reasons. I don't always agree with him, but like, I can trust that he's going to have an honest conversation with someone, and I can make my own informed decisions, you know? And yeah, I'm not a big Bernie fan, but man, I listened to that entire podcast and thoroughly enjoyed it.
Me too. You know, the other one, Theo Vaughn's podcast is excellent. I listened to that whole Bernie episode, and it was great.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, I could agree with a lot of the things this guy's saying, actually.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of this stuff makes sense and sounds great in theory.
Sure.
You know, but in the real world, it doesn't, just some of that utopian stuff just doesn't work.
Right.
You know, I do think that we need to fix our, like the medical, we can get into that, like all the medicine that's going, like the medical in this country is fucked up, and it's not fair. It's not fair for everyone, and we need to fix that. But at the end of the day, like if I work hard, you don't get to take all of my stuff.
Right.
Like you don't get to take, you already take half of my check. Like what else do you want from me?
Mm-hmm.
Like I work my ass off and you still take half of my stuff, like half of it. It's insane. And that's the kind of country, like, that's why I think something has to change there. But that's the thing, man. Like these podcasts are where guys are going to get guys and gals are going to get real information, because you get to know a guy. If a guy like Kamala, they knew not to do that Joe Rogan podcast because you get to know what kind of she is. She doesn't have any substance to her. She's a puppet. She's just another puppet that they've put in. So they knew that would expose her. And Joe Rogan is going to give everybody a fair shot. Like, no, he never brings somebody on there like with an agenda to like knock them down or like push a certain product or anything. Like that's not his agenda. His agenda is just to get to know you. I've done his show, so I know that like firsthand what it's like to go on his show, and you just go on and he asks you questions and you answer them. It's that simple.
Yeah.
It's a simple interview, but it's just a long form interview of where you're having a conversation with a guy and you get comfortable and you can open up about yourself. And that's what people want to know. They want to know that they want to know, like for Donald Trump to go on that podcast, Theo's podcast, like Theo Vaughn's talking about cocaine on that podcast. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just, it makes it relatable to people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying cocaine's relatable to people. I'm just saying like having an open conversation makes other people relate to you. And that's where the Democrat Party just has lost everybody. They're unrelatable. Like nobody can relate to Beyonce. Like, sorry, that's not relatable. She's a billionaire. You know, nobody's relating to these, to Taylor Swift and these crazy musicians that they don't know what it's like to go to the grocery store and buy a stick of butter that costs $7. You know, like they don't know what that's like because they don't pay attention to it because that doesn't affect them. Like that doesn't affect their bottom line because they got millions of dollars. You know, it's the same with me. I don't know how much butter costs and how much milk costs. I don't pay attention to that, you know, because I'm blessed to not have to, and I worked my ass off to not have to worry about that. But the average, we're the 1% that lives like that. The rest of the world and the rest of the country has to worry about what groceries cost. So the fact that they were just like blind to that, you know, they just pushed it aside and made it seem like it was a figment of our imagination that was actually happening. Oh, and then tell you that you're racist to care about that, or you're insensitive, or there's bigger things to worry about. And then if Donald Trump was truly Hitler, they would never if that was what was happening, they would never allow that to happen. Like it just wouldn't happen. It doesn't happen here. So when they keep pushing that somebody's like a Hitler and he's going to take away your rights as a woman, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. Like it's all lies. And nobody's held accountable for that because there's no consequence. So they get to just say whatever they want, and then there's no consequence to it in the end. If Donald Trump was truly Hitler, do you think that Joe Biden would have had him and, would have been so nice to him when he came into the White House? Just smiling, having a good conversation with him. It's just It's all politics. And then, but everybody puts so much emotion into it and makes it personal, where most of the country is in the middle.
Right. And I think a good point to bring up on all this, and I want to come back to Bernie, is when Joe Biden's still president at the time of this recording. I don't know about you, but I would assume you might have been similar to me. At no point in the last whatever years did I say, Joe Biden's not my president. Honestly, I never voted for him, but he is the president and I respect his position. And I'm not going to denounce his presidency because I didn't vote for him. So I'm happy to support as best as I can and to pray for him. Honestly, pray for your leader. I think that's important. And now that Donald Trump will be president, I will pray for him to make wise decisions and to be a better leader than he has in the past. And I mean, that's what we should do as Americans, is try to be united. And when we're talking about being united, Derek, I got to bring this back to hunting, because there's something that drives me nuts with our fellow hunters. And it's this sense of socialism that I'm seeing coming injected into the hunting space, where there should be equal outcomes for all hunters. And I just don't buy that. So like you and me, you have a strength coach, and let's say I have a strength coach, and we're training our asses off, and I hire an archery coach so I can be better at archery, and I hire an elk calling coach, and then I spend way more time on my weekends driving out to these places and scouting for elk, learning the country, and I'm doing all these things and buying upgraded gear. And when it times to come out, Derek heads out to the mountains, kills a 350 bull opening morning, never stepped foot in that unit before. And I'm over here and I did so much more than you, man. Like I scouted more than you, and I shot more arrows than you. And I had a coach for my archery, and I had the best gear, and I go for 10 days and I come home empty handed. That's not I worked harder than you, but you got an elk and I didn't. And so I'm going to not like you. I'm tired of like the infighting within the hunting community about equal outcomes. Maybe you bought yourself a landowner tag this year, and I can't afford that. That's not fair. There has never been anything fair in this world that I live in. And there's
No.
never been a guarantee that if I do all these things, I get this. You know what I mean? And so I know we're talking
There's
about
no guarantees in life.
we're talking about our
Nothing's
country,
guaranteed.
but I want to talk about us as hunters too. Like same deal. Like this ain't Bernie Sanders hunting world that we live in, man. Like there's no equal outcomes, and there's never gonna be. And I wanted you to get your thoughts on that while I had you, because like it's something I'm seeing pop up a lot lately, and it's just like you're missing the point.
You're right, man. And I think social media is to blame.
Okay.
Because what happens is I got skunked on elk the last 2 years.
Okay.
In good units.
Sure.
Close. I was really close, but just, the wind will switch on you.
Yeah.
And I don't get to be out there every single day. So I have, my time is limited to a couple days at a time to be out there. So, if I could just stay out there, I probably would kill one. But, I did 7 days in New Mexico, couldn't get one killed. Came really close. I'm getting really close.
Yeah.
And almost making it happen, but just couldn't get one killed with a bow. And then this year I was in Colorado, and I hunted 17 days in Colorado this year and in September, and I was close a lot. And I slung an arrow and wounded an elk, and he was fine. At 82 yards, but it was like the last hour of the season. And it's like, but then you get done with those hunts and you get on social media and it's like, everybody's got a giant bull. It seems like everybody's posting a picture of their giant bull that they got. And it's like, part of me is like, man, how come it's not, why can't I make it happen? Like, what am I doing wrong? So then that's where jealousy creeps in. And it's all about, people are jealous. They're mad and they're jealous because they're like, I just spent all this money and all this time and I'm trying to be an influencer and I'm trying to do this and that. But part of elk hunting is like learning and cutting your teeth, man. Like you're going to go, I talked to Corey Jacobson. He's like, dude, I went years without killing an elk. It takes a long time to like understand how these animals operate. You can watch all the YouTube videos that you want, but when it comes down to it, once you get out there, everything you could do everything 100% right. But if that elk doesn't screw up, like a little 5% screw up, you're not going to get him killed. Not with a bow. He's got to screw up. You have got to catch him doing something stupid. The wind has to be perfect. Everything has to go right. And then you got to make the shot. And so there's a lot of slip between a cup and a lip, man. And I think that people are just, there's equal opportunity, not equal outcome. Right? So we all have the same opportunity to go hunt elk. There's guys that go hunt over the counter in Colorado and they kill a bull every year. They kill one every year because they got it figured out. They hunt the same area. They have them figured out. And a lot of it has the weather needs to be right because if it's above 60 degrees, those elk are going to be at 12,000 feet.
Yeah.
But if it's like, oh, you got some early snow up in the mountains, they might come down out of there. So now they're at like 9,500 to 10,000. So it's like, it's all dependent. You have to understand how the elk operate. And even then, everything still has to go perfectly right. So I think that people, or you just go, or if you really want to you want to go kill an elk, go sit a water hole all of September and then you'll kill one. But I don't like to hunt that way because I spend November hunting whitetails like that.
Yeah.
Hunting over a field and hunting on transition areas and stuff like that. Like it's just sitting there. I like hunting elk because I can get up and go. And I can physically, put myself in position instead of just being like, he's just out of range. Like I can try to sneak up on him, which never works because I'm too big, but yeah. At the end of the day, man, I agree with you, man. I think there's too much, what about me? And then people are looking at guys like Jimmy John who spend millions of dollars every year to kill the biggest elk, the biggest sheep, the biggest everything. But that, what? Everybody had equal opportunity. He started a sandwich company and became a billionaire. Like if he wants to spend $1 million on tags, then good on him. He's given back to conservation. Like who cares? Somebody's going to do it. So like for people to be jealous about that. And then, guys will make excuses like, oh, Joe Rogan gets to hunt all these amazing areas and stuff. It's like, well, yeah, he started a podcast and he has the money to do it. If you had the money to do it, you would do it too. If I had 75 grand to blow, just to blow, I'd go buy one of those tags, but I can't justify it right now. I want to. Believe me, I want to do it.
Yeah, you think that, but I will say, like, I've been exposed a little to some of these hunts. Like, I've done a couple, and man, they're tough. Like, they're not like, it's a different kind of hunt, man. Like, you have a guide that you have to have. You don't get a choice. And like, you know how you said you shot a bull on the last day and wounded it, but it was okay. You know, that happens in bow hunting from time to time. You do that at a place like that, you draw blood, you're done. That's your elk.
You're done.
And if you spent, like, whatever you said, $75K on a hunt, and you miss that opportunity, you draw blood early on, well, congratulations. You donated $75,000. Your hunt is over. There's a lot of pressure that I think a lot of people would be surprised how much that affects the enjoyment of your hunt. Because I'm just talking from experience. I've done a couple of these, and it's like, it's different, and it's a lot of pressure to where it's almost it could be crippling at times to where you don't want to make a mistake, and you almost don't hunt your best because you're trying to do everything extra perfect. And we all know bow hunting isn't perfect. Nothing's perfect in this world. But yeah, I honestly, like a Jimmy John's, like, based on how much he brings in revenue to his account and how much he spends on hunting, you do the ratio. I spend more on hunting than he does.
Dude, he makes like $10 million a year on chips. Just chips. So for him to, if he's going to go spend $500,000 on a sheep tag,
it's a drop in the bucket.
It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And he gets the right half of it off. Like, he needs those write-offs anyway. So like, why I'm glad that he's using those write-offs to do it in the hunting community. And then he'll have 16 guides out there that he's paying them all. Yeah. They're all getting paid. Yep. It's like, it's great for the hunting community, honestly, because it's getting guys paid. I know it sucks that you don't get to go kill that giant 400. He killed a bull in Arizona that was closer to 500 than it was to 400.
And he had like a whole army of dudes in the photo.
An army of them.
And people lose their minds. I get like both sides, but like, if you look at the big picture, Jimmy Johns could be writing that check to Defenders of Wildlife or whoever else. He could be writing a check to them instead. Instead, he's over here putting money back into the economy that kind of drives the hunting space. I don't know.
But it goes back to like why the infighting.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I'm a compound bow hunter, right? Why am I trying to put down rifle hunters? Why would you do that? Like, we're all outdoorsmen and outdoors women. We are hunters. And at the end of the day, man, we're all on the same team. So like, if we keep infighting, we're going to lose it all.
Yeah.
It's just like any team. It's like any team. If you and your team are disconnected, you're not going to win many games. And we all it showed what happens when we come together on this Prop 127 in Colorado. Everybody in the community came together. Everyone.
It was awesome.
I'm talking about the hunting community.
Everybody
came together. And then, you know what? It was also in November. People came together in November in the election. 10 million hunters didn't vote in the last election. 10 million. And it shows you, like, if we all come together and make the decisions that are right for based on our beliefs, we can win just about anything we want. Like, we're not going to lose. It might be tight, but we can win if we come together. But if you just decide I'm not playing, I'm not voting, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, then you're part of the problem. Like, you have to pick. We're on a side here. Like, there's a side trying to completely eradicate our way of life. So, you have to pick a side. You can't just be in the middle on this stuff. Like, these are issues you can't be in the middle on. It's like, hey, it's going to come down to, like, they're going to put this on the ballot, and random people that don't have a clue about this, bleeding hearts are going to see mountain lions on TV getting killed. These old videos of guys just killing mountain lions and dragging them through the river. And it's like, dude, that's not what it is. That's not how this happens. Like, it's hard to find a lion to kill. It's hard. You might tree 5, but all 5 of those might be subadult males, and you're not going to kill them because it's not good for the lion population. So you don't do it. So I don't know, man. I just think that we got to come together. We can't argue over what broadheads are better. Who cares? Who gives a shit? Honestly, who cares? Like, You can do that stuff in a forum, but at the end of the day, like we just got to be on the same team. We can argue about what boots are better and what, oh, well, these boots are the best boots ever. This pack is the best pack. These bows are, every year there's a new fucking bow that comes out. Like every year, every single bow company puts all this money into a new bow. So it's like, what are we going to argue over that too? We're going to argue what bow is better. They're all the same bow. They all shoot the same. Like, I don't care what anybody says. They all shoot the fucking same. Does it like people were killing deer with the original compound bows. They were killing deer and elk with those. So it doesn't matter if don't blame your equipment. All right. That's all I'm saying. Don't blame your fucking equipment. Like it's you. So.
Well, if anybody has made it this far in the pod, I'm just like takeaways. I'm hoping that the message was, look, you can't sit on the sidelines and be like, what happens in Colorado is not happening in my home state of Iowa. I don't care. Yeah. I really am asking outdoorsmen to lower. I mean, definitely go on the internet and argue on forums all you want. But when it comes down to paying attention to what's going on in other states, I want you to participate. I want it to be on your radar. I want you to help, because I saw it happen in November in Colorado where we all came together. And I don't know if I've ever seen that in my entire life. And it's like so encouraging that it was worth the conversation to have today to get people thinking about don't stay on the sidelines.
Hey everybody, this episode is brought to you by Black Buffalo. Black Buffalo's nicotine pouches do not contain tobacco leaf or stem. What they do contain is a ton of flavor, and they're packed with pharmaceutical grade nicotine. The magic of Black Buffalo is they discovered a way to make cured edible green leaves behave like the texture of tobacco, and they add food grade ingredients for industry classic flavors. You're in good company if you roam with the Black Buffalo herd. The business was built by dippers with decades of smokeless tobacco use. They manufacture their tobacco alternatives with respect for those products that came before them. Bold flavors, full pouches, metal lids, and a brand that stands for something: American. Their products are also proudly endorsed by brand ambassadors such as MMA Hall of Famer Cowboy Cerrone, NASCAR champion Brian Blaney, rising country star Larry Fleet, and Rob O'Neill, former U.S. Navy SEAL Team 6. So if you're 21 and older and you consume nicotine or tobacco and you want to join the Black Buffalo herd, head over to blackbuffalo.com to learn more. You can order nicotine pouches online, and they ship directly to most states. Or you can check out their store locator to purchase pouches at thousands of retail locations around the country. Black Buffalo, an American brand, pouches worth respect. I want to talk about the exercise side of everything. I know it has. I just want to get away from the politics of it because I get fucking pissed. Like I get angry at the infighting. So let's talk about talk about the approach that you take now with all of your strength and fitness knowledge, or your strength training knowledge, and what kind of things do you do to get ready for the elk season? Like, what is walk me through, like, okay, I'm going to start this month getting ready, and then I'm going to build up, and then I want to peak in September.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I treat it like a year-round program. I definitely do, with periodization, meaning, steps along the way that build to peaking come September. I do have to say, Derek, like, when everybody gets out of the woods, like you were in New Mexico for a week, and then you were in the high country of Colorado for 17 days. When you had been in BC before that, the second you stepped out of your last hunt in Colorado, Derek was in tip-top elk shape. And I just want people to realize that you probably experienced something like similar to where you got done with your 10, 14 day out-of-state elk hunt, and you were in a hell of a lot better elk shape than you were when you started. And I'm telling you that it's a lot easier to stay into elk shape than to get out and to try to get into elk shape and have the cyclical downward spiral year over year, especially as we are aging men. So I don't do fitness to be like, get ready for this elk season 2025. I am doing fitness so that I can always elk hunt. As long as I have a beating heart and breathing lungs on this planet, I want to be elk hunting. I don't give a shit how old I am. I literally, if I make it in my 80s and 90s, I better have a bow and I better be humping the mountains. Like, otherwise, what's the point? So for me, it's all about trajectory. making disciplined decisions now so that I can hunt long term. With that being said, my philosophy is super simple. Like, I want to have a purpose for every pound on my body. So you weigh 300, I weigh $160. When I get out of the woods in September, I usually like hover around 140. I actually don't look that good. I look pretty gross, but I walk around between 160 and 170 year round, and I want to have a purpose for every pound on my body. I don't want to lug around any extra unwanted pounds. And I even have a Go Ruck vest that weighs 20. And Derek, when I put that thing on and do normal workouts, it's a pain in my ass to have a just additional 20-pound vest. Pull-ups become so much harder. Running becomes so much harder. So imagine if you're wanting to elk hunt and you yourself have an excess 20, 40-pound weight vest on your body. Dude, you're not going to hunt as good as you could. Straight up. So purpose for every pound starts in the kitchen. You can't out-train a crappy diet. I wish you could. It takes a lot longer to get results. It takes no time at all to lose results. So you just have to decide, do you want to be consistently fit? And if you do make that decision, you will consistently have more enjoyable, potentially more successful elk hunting. As far as what to do in the gym, man, I don't know. We could do a whole pod on this, but I would say a good rule of thumb, while I have everybody's ear, is to gravitate towards the things at which you do not excel at. For example, if I was training Derek, I would probably have him do power cleans. Are cool. We'll do some power cleans. I know you're going to crush power cleans. You're going to bend barbells and you're going to bench and you're going to squat. You're good at that shit. We'll do some of it, but we're going to gravitate towards the stuff you don't want to see come up. You know what I mean? Where it could be the sprint intervals with the weight vest on, or maybe the interval rucks, or I don't know, whatever it is, some long rowing intervals or some zone 2 cardio stuff that's unsexy. We will tackle the stuff that you have the biggest glaring weaknesses in, just to make you more well-rounded. Now, we're probably opposites. I wasn't born strong. I wasn't born big hypertrophy muscles. So I spent a lot of time on strength, on power output, because I just don't have it. And if I don't touch it, my body would love to just go run. My body was built for running and long hikes and all that stuff. So I spend more of my time on my weaknesses, and I encourage others to do the same.
Yeah, that's how we train for football. If I just bench and squat every day, I'm not getting better. I'm already good at those, right? If I just work on the one pass rush move that I'm really good at, if I just do that every time I go do one-on-ones and I don't try a new move, because eventually that guy's going to figure out how to stop it.
Yeah.
And I need to have a backup plan, and it's the same thing with training for elk hunting. So yeah, dude, when I get out, when September's over, I am depleted.
Yeah.
My body is dude, it's begging for some mass back on it, cause I get that. And that for that BC hunt, I was 280.
Yeah.
So I was 20 pounds lighter, and I walk around at 293, 294. I say 300 pounds, I'm just rounding up.
Yeah.
But whenever I feel full and healthy when I'm that big, when I get down below 280 pounds, I feel sick. I look at myself and I'm your head looks big. What's wrong with you? But that's not just all that mass is not sustainable in the mountains. So what I'll do is I'll just do I'll start building it back on, start putting mass back on right after right after hunting season's over. So that's what I do in the winter, the winter months, is I just in the dungeon lifting weights and, keeping my cardio up and doing the Stairmaster and doing bike intervals and doing rowing intervals and stuff like that to do my cardio. But I am lifting heavy to get my mass back on. And then as soon as the winter's over and spring hits, I'm back on to my high hit training. So I'm doing high interval strength training. So I'm doing heavy weights, but I'm doing it at a way faster tempo. I'm not taking 90 seconds in between sets. We're going as fast as we're getting in 45 minutes. We're getting about 2 hours of work in. We're getting after it. And then as we get closer, I start rucking in the summer, start rucking heavy. So I have an 80-pound sandbag. I just toss that in a pack and I just go take off. After my strength training, that's what I do. I finish almost every day. I do that. I do a 5 to 10 mile hike with just 80 pounds on my back, because your pack is going to weigh probably 30 to 40 pounds Like on a day hunt, it's probably like 20 pounds, you know? So I don't ever want that to feel uncomfortable when I'm hunting. And then I always also working on like ankle stability, keeping my knees healthy, doing stuff like that. Cause when nothing's perfect out there. It's all rocks that move and slippery. And the last thing you want to do is like tear your ACL while you're out in the mountain and hit that SOS button. Like that would suck. That'd be terrible. And rehabbing sucks anyways. Like rehabbing injuries sucks. So that was the way I thought when I played. I was like, I'm gonna do everything I can to stay healthy because I hate rehabbing. So yeah, man, I think guys need to take their fitness more serious when it comes to elk hunting. There's a lot of guys from Texas that come up here and they get hammered in this altitude too. Cause the altitude, people forget about the altitude.
Oh yeah.
They get up, but you get up above 9,000 feet, man. And you know what it's like. I don't care how much you train. I used to say this about football. The only way to get into football shape is to play football. Cause I don't care how many fucking sprints you did and how many hang cleans you did or I don't care how many pull-ups you can do. That doesn't matter. Because when we get out here on the field and it's a 90-degree, 80% humidity day and it's miserable, fatigue makes cowards of us all. And that's what happens. You see guys break. And you see it on the mountain too. Guys just break. It breaks them. They're like, man, they're not having any fun. So if you want to like enjoy your mountain hunt and your Western hunt, get in shape for it and take it serious. And you're right, man. It's all year long. It is. It's like a process all year long. And I like what you said about staying ready. So you don't have to get ready. That's how I operated during the season, with football. I felt like I had to always be ready to play like I had to be ready for a Sunday night game, no matter what. Like after the season was over, I took 2 weeks to just like recovery and then boom, straight back into it. And I wanted to be in playing shape. I never wanted to show up to training camp isn't to get into shape. You better show up to training camp like ready to go. Like don't show up to training camp like, oh, I'm going to get into shape now. Like that's not going to work. You can't just like be like, oh, the first 3 days are going to suck on a mountain. It's funny. My camera guy's like that. He doesn't really train. He lives in Oklahoma, but he'll come out here and the first day he's like tired as hell, right? The first day. But this guy's like an anomaly because the next day he's like, oh, I'm in shape now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're in shape now. We just went one day. He's like, yeah, I'm good. And he will, dude. He'll pack 120 pounds on his back for 10 miles and not say a word about it and then drink a beer when we get to the truck. He's just a freak.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I can't do that. I have to be ready to go and in shape for that, or else I'm going to start cramping while I'm out there and it's going to take me forever to get back to the truck. So yeah, man, I like what you've done with the fitness side of things. Where can everybody find you?
You can find me, just at ElkShape, wherever you do your thing. We're on YouTube, Instagram, all those places. And we're honestly just trying to sell hard work. We want to see guys extend their seasons, their careers, their trajectory, become better versions of themselves and leverage elk hunting to do that.
Don't act like you're not. Look, I have your website pulled up and there's a picture of you yoked up right here on the front of your website.
Yeah. Photoshop.
Yeah, Photoshop.
No, not a chance. That's not fake muscle. That's real muscle. What do you do with your elk hunter ElkShape website? Like, what do you do on there? I just want everybody to, I know what you do, but I want the people listening to.
So we do, if people ask me what I do for work all the time, ask my kids, and I'm like, I tell them I do media. Absolutely hate the word influencer. The only people I'm trying to influence is Avery and Tristan, ages 10 and 8, to be better humans and to love the Lord. But on the hunting side of things, man, I make YouTube videos. I try to make them fun, entertaining, and educational and motivational. Social media, same kind of vibe. At the end of the day, I just want to go elk hunting. I'm a diehard. I'm the most committed elk hunter you'll find. And one of those things is through training. That's my background. So we do have ElkShape training, which is just I would call it a home gym style of training program. 2 tracks. One's kind of more of I don't have a lot of equipment. I just have a pair of dumbbells and a sandbag. And then the guys like you and me who train at a full-on home gym or training facility where we just get after it. And we just do periodized programming. So like right now we're in the density phase. Like it's post-season. We're trying to build up that soft tissue, build up our muscle, which is really important time of year to kind of build that foundation as wide as possible, because we're going to work off that the rest of the year. And I don't know about you, man, but like when you hit your 40s, and I'm sure it gets worse in your 50s, and I hope to find that out. But like keeping muscle is my number one priority, keeping muscle density. And so we're in that density phase. We'll move on to different phases and build up into where we hit peak. And it's just a year-round training program built for elk hunters by strength and conditioning elk hunters.
That's badass. I love it. I think a lot of people are dying for that. You know, like there's a lot of people that love the lifestyle. And I think the fitness side of things has brought more hunters to the community than would have come otherwise. Cause I think there was a misconception of like what a hunter actually, you know, what is an outdoorsman? What is a hunter? You know, is it just some, you know, fat redneck sitting in a tree over a pile of corn? I mean, that's one way to do it. But when it comes to like, you want to be in shape and live a certain lifestyle and be healthy and live a long life, you know, I think that you're a great example of that. So Dan, I appreciate you jumping on, man. I had like a whole way I wanted to take the podcast, but we went a whole different way. So it's fine. I appreciate you, brother. And hopefully we can get together on a hunt soon.
Yeah, dude, I am looking forward to that. We'll have to scheme. I'll see you at probably the expo in Salt Lake, or in February. I hope you're there, and we'll maybe scheme on a plan.
I'll be there.
Okay.
I'll be there. And listen, I just secured a really good over-the-counter lease in Colorado. So try to get that tag.
We'll talk.
Try to get that tag.
All right.
Because I've got like 500,000 acres to play.
I do have a few points in Colorado I need burning.
Well, if you're going to burn points, then I have another unit that you should burn, and we won't tell everybody that unit, but we could talk about that too. I have a place there. So
see, kids, this is what we talked about. You got to play the game, and part of that game is your network. It's your net worth. So you can get in the game by knowing and talking and sharing both ways, and you'll get more opportunity. Not an equal outcome necessarily, but equal opportunity if you network. So yep. I love it, man.
Absolutely, man. And we'll be in touch, brother. I appreciate you.
All right, man. God bless you.
Yep, you too. All right. Thanks for listening to the Wolfe Untamed podcast. Be sure to check me out on Instagram, DerekWolfe_95. Check out the Wolfe Untamed podcast on YouTube. You can listen on all the other platforms, as well as DerekWolfe.com.